Good morning, friends and enemies. We are here, as always, every Monday afternoon to recap everything that happened in every game of the NFL over the weekend. We are recapping the Week 13 slate, all right? We've got snap counts, we got routes run, and we got, most importantly, injuries to check up on because that relates to your waiver wire, relates to what you're doing next week. This week, we had 3 teams playing Thanksgiving. We had a Black Friday game. We had the regular Sunday slate. We've got a Monday night game, New England, New York, tonight. Next week, we've got 4 teams on bye. All right, we've got the 49ers. We have the Carolina Panthers. We have the Patriots, and we have the Giants. All right, so 4 teams on bye, and that is the week everybody needs to get into the playoffs. So we've got a lot to talk about today. We'll jump right in, starting with the Thanksgiving Day games. Bang, bang, boom. We are ready to go. Packers, Lions. Packers win this one 31-24. Lions offense still feels a little bit out of sorts here. So Jordan Love plays one of, if not the best games of the season, 4 touchdown passes. Again, with these recaps, I typically try to dive into the biggest storylines, takeaways, things that you need to know going forward. You know, we don't have to touch on every little thing that happens or just repeat performances of a lot of players. This was Josh Jacobs' first game back from the knee injury. It was only a 1-week absence, but he came back in 17 carries, 83 yards. He did only play on 55% of the snaps, Christopher Brooks got in for 28%, 18% to Emmanuel Wilson. So there's still a little bit of a split backfield here, and I think that will probably be the case going forward as long as Josh Jacobs is less than 100% healthy, but still good to see him obviously rolling in here for 18 touches. We do have a big game from Dontavian Wicks, his first fantasy relevant game this year, not overemphasizing that. Christian Watson continues to be a great piece in this offense, 10 targets out of 30 Jordan Love pass attempts. I mean, right now he is a super solid flex play, if not like a strong high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2. Dobbs 4 for 20, does get into the end zone. Him and Christian Watson are still running the most routes there, so this is not a Dontavian Wicks takeover. On the flip side, biggest storylines here, Amon-Ra St. Brown leaves with an ankle injury. From everything we've heard, it is a low ankle sprain. However, they do play again on Thursday. So it's not the typical 10-day rest you'd normally get from playing on Thursday then the following Sunday. So Detroit plays the Green Bay Packers. Detroit plays the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday Night Football, which should be a great game. But I don't think it's a guarantee Amon-Ra is back, even though it is a low ankle sprain, supposedly. Okay? So we're going to have to keep a close eye on practice reports. If Amon-Ra were to miss this game, obviously Jamison Williams-Stein is a must start. You have 2 interesting options behind him. You got Tom Kennedy, who kind of just came in and had a decent day, some big catches. Not interested in picking up or starting him. But Isaac Tesla is the rookie that's gotten a lot of hype. He's making big plays whenever he gets the opportunity. I'm kind of looking at him as like an Andre Yoshivas, where he's not going to win when guys that are above him in the depth chart are playing. Obviously, he doesn't just play a lot of snaps. And when we look at the actual snap counts amongst the receivers, we do see that he took a massive jump up to 94% of the routes because Amon-Ra St. Brown got hurt pretty early on. So he will be running a lot of routes. Will he get a lot of targets? I mean, it's a Cowboys pass defense that could definitely be thrown on. So, you know, you could do worse than picking him up, but I also think he's very risky, and he's very risky because he's at risk for a very, very low floor if Amon-Ra were to miss. If he doesn't miss, cool. Just business as usual. Moving to the second game of the Thanksgiving Day, another banger. Cowboys beat the Chiefs 31-28. Patrick Mahomes, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Rossi Rice has a big day. Kelsey gets home with a touchdown. Pacheco makes his return in this one, but Kareem Hunt still kind of dominates the backfield here. 14 carries to Pacheco's 3. And when you look at the snap counts, it was similar in terms of domination. I believe Hunt was at around 70% of the snaps. Pacheco down at around 30%. There's part of me that's like, yeah, it was his first game back from a multi-week injury, so this will probably get closer and closer. But I also think Kareem Hunt, it's very similar to last year, where it's like when they're both on the field, Kareem Hunt is actually just playing a little bit better. He's like playing within the scheme. He's not very boom or bust. He gets what you ask for. And I think with the way the Chiefs play, they're a very pass-heavy offense. They always are. They don't try to fake that. They just know that they have Patrick Mahomes, they have Andy Reid, and they say, this is our best chance to win the game. It's just going to be a million Patrick Mahomes dropbacks. So they don't try to get cute here. And Kareem Hunt is a good option for that type of offense. Because if you have guys that are more boom or bust, you're like, all right, Pacheco's trying to make plays, but then he loses 3 yards. It's like, now the one part of that game, like we want to set up 2nd and 6s, 2nd and 5s, because Mahomes is going to make that play. It's like you're taking that away. So I could see Pacheco getting a little bit more involved, but as someone who owns Kareem Hunt in an important league, I'm not like overly excited about it, but I feel pretty good about him as a depth piece. And I do think he'll probably kind of own that backfield going forward. Not a lot of upside, obviously, though. On the flip side, Dak continues to play well. Javonte gets a ton of carries. CeeDee Lamb, big game back. George Pickens, 6 for 88 on 13 targets, leads the team. Continues to dominate. Could have had a much bigger day, honestly, too. Had a target that was lost in the lights from the fucking Jerry Field. Had a couple bad throws from Dak. Either way, you're just starting those guys every single week. Next up, we got the game of the evening. We have the Bengals and we have the Ravens here. Joe Burrow makes his return, of course, 24 for 46, 261, 2 touchdowns. If you watch the game, Burrow did not play well. Let's just leave it out there. Let's just be honest. Missed a lot of throws, looked fine. 5.7 yards per attempt, not good. But they get the win, so they semi keep their playoff chances alive. Jamar Chase, unsurprisingly, 14 targets, 7 for 110. Gets it done. Chase Brown goes over 100 yards from scrimmage again. But this was one of the key points that people were making throughout the week about Chase Brown's upside being a little bit limited. Now, it didn't come to fruition because obviously they ran a shit ton of plays here. They had a lot of turnovers, so they ended up running 79 plays on offense. Samaje Perine, 14 carries for 39 yards. Semi-involved in the passing game. Chase Brown, 15 carries, 7 catches. So 22 touches overall. Obviously, that's going to come down, but Perine very, very involved in this game, and people were worried that Perine was going to have a big pass-catching role. Let's take a look at the long down and distance snaps for the Bengals here in that backfield. This was one of the concerns. Now, Chase Brown did end up having 7 targets in this one, which is a very, very high number. But Samaje Perine, short down and distance, 64%. Inside the 5-yard line, it was only 1 carry, but he got it. Long down and distance, 81%. 2-minute drill, Chase Brown, though. Might have just been, the tempo of the game, whatever. But clearly, Samaje Perine's going to have a little bit of an impact on Chase Brown's ceiling. That being said, Chase Brown's playing well. T. Higgins will be back next week. The Cincinnati Bengals get the Buffalo Bills on the road in Buffalo. And Buffalo's pass defense is a lot better than their run defense. So not just a cake matchup whatsoever. So we'll see as Joe Burrow continues to get more acclimated. He was wearing like a steel plate in his foot, and it was uncomfortable for him. And I think you could tell sometimes that he was still, recovering from that turf toe. But clearly out there, going to sling the ball, and good to see in his first game back. On the flip side, you'll hear a lot of reports about how horrendous of a game this was for Lamar Jackson. I don't know. Like, yes, he doesn't look that great running the ball. Yes, he's actually a little bit more inaccurate than usual. Maybe he's dealing with the hamstring, maybe the toe. I don't know what he's actually dealing with right now. If you watch the game, though, like, I don't really think this was on Lamar Jackson. You have Isaiah Likely getting stripped at the 1-inch yard line. You have Zay Flowers getting called for a phantom fucking OPI on a 50-yard touchdown pass. Like, Lamar Jackson could have had 302 or 3 touchdowns through the air. You had him getting stripped a couple times, which obviously is not great, but you had like a tuck rule where he just didn't throw it, and then it kind of like slipped out of his hand when it was below his waist. So I just think like they got really unlucky in this game. It's not like I'm coping. Like, it's not like I have Lamar in my big league. Like, I don't care. I'm just saying, like, I feel like the narrative around Lamar Jackson is so insanely like strong right now. And yes, he's probably a little bit limited due to some injury. A couple bounces go his way, and you're looking at, in my opinion, like a 25-point fantasy game, and we're not worried about this at all. So, yeah. Next up, we got the Bears and the Eagles. I mean, there was really no story of this game outside of just the run game for Chicago. The Monangai and DeAndre Swift backfield just dominated the Eagles. I have not seen the Eagles' defensive front get pushed like they did in a game in years. It was every carry. Monangai and Swift had 5 yards to work with before they even had to pick a hole to go down. It was crazy. Monangai finishes 22 for 130 on the ground and a touchdown. Swift 18 for 125 and a touchdown. He gets the only reception in that backfield for 13 yards. When you look at the split breakdown, it's just been very similar for the last 2 months, month and a half, whatever. It's Swift kind of ekes him out, but they were just playing drive by drive. It was a Swift drive, then it was a Monangai drive, then it was a Swift drive, then it was a Monangai drive. So the snap counts aren't really something to look into just because that's going to ebb and flow with what drive do you happen to be in on, whether they sustain that drive or not. But both of them look great. The offensive line, the run blocking unit there is just so fucking good. Anyone who watches the game, though, that Chicago plays, their record at 9-3 is, I don't want to say it's fluky, but their passing game is still extremely flunky. You're not going to be able to win 3-4 playoff games in a row by just winning the ground game. Like, you need your quarterback to play massive games in the playoffs in order to, like, really make a push. They're the number one seed in the NFC right now, but you're not being honest with yourself if you watch Chicago Bears and you're like, yeah, this is a great all-around offense. It is, like, it's hard to rely on Caleb Williams. He's making a lot of really bad throws, some error decisions. He's a great runner, really fast, and the run game is awesome. So if a team can take out the run game, if a team can make their run game inefficient, which I'm not saying is an easy task whatsoever because their offensive line in the run blocking space is so fucking good, they're going to have a hard time winning games, I think. What does that leave for this backfield? I mean, it's really tough. Like, they'll have games like this, and it was good to see it against the Eagles. Like, this is a game where you go into and you're like, I'm kind of torn about both of these running backs. Like, do I start them? Do I sit them? Because they're going to split carries. And this is a tough front seven, but clearly not as tough as we thought. And they've been having trouble stopping running backs sometimes this year. So Chicago, they get, who do they get? They're at Green Bay next week. So tough matchup on paper. Cleveland in week 15. Cleveland did just lose Malik Collins for the remainder of the year. They also, I believe, Shelby Harris, their other interior defensive lineman, got hurt as well. So while they've been great on the front seven this year, and I still think they're going to be very above average, it's possible that they're going to be missing two really good interior players on the defensive line for that game. So, where the schedule might have looked a little scary at first, listen, I got Swift on my big money team, and I got Rico Dowdle out next week, so I'm going to be firing up Swift, obviously, as my RB2 there behind Achane, and I'm going to feel relatively good about it. I have Kyle Monangai on that team as well, and I probably won't be starting him. I still think at the end of the day, it's like Swift will catch more passes, Swift will start, and I think he's more likely to get more snaps. On the goal line, again, it's really just like whoever's in there gets the score. Swift, I want to say they were on the goal line, and they gave Monangai like 2 or 3 carries. He didn't convert, and then on fourth down, they brought Swift in and gave him like an off-center carry, which was like kind of a sick play call. He ended up getting in. So it's going to be tough, but I still prefer Swift to Monangai right now. But it's a tough situation to break down. I think they're both like borderline RB 22 to 26 in that range on a weekly basis, depending on the matchup going forward. In the passing game, again, like the whole thing just looks so fucking clunky that it's hard to trust anyone in this passing game. And I'd just rather not really start anyone if I could help it. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about not starting anyone? Philadelphia, brutal, man. AJ Brown has a monster fucking game. Cool, glad we got it. And even more surprising was that we had Jalen Johnson, their all-pro cornerback for the Chicago Bears, and Kyler Gordon both return for this game. So they get a big boost to their defense. So now I will say, like, listen, they'll be a much more well-rounded team. Jalen Johnson back, Kyler Gordon back. They were without their top 3 linebackers again and still held Saquon Barkley very much in check. If they get those linebackers back, like, they can have a pretty damn good offense. They went from just like a pushover at the beginning of the year because of a lot of the injuries, but they'll be a lot better as the season progresses. So good run game, good defense, could take you far. I'm still a little skeptical about Caleb Williams just missing a lot of throws that, like, he just shouldn't be missing. Not much I could tell you on the Philly side, man. Just disappointing all around. Great to see the AJ Brown game, but, like, does anyone who own AJ Brown have confidence that this is just going to be the case going forward? Not really. They got the Chargers in LA next week. Tough matchup. Raiders, Washington, Buffalo, though. Not bad. Saquon, also, nothing I could really tell you. Their offensive line is just struggling. He looks like Ashton Genty back there. It's like as soon as he touches the ball, he's getting hit by 7 guys. So I don't think there's really a world where you could sit him, but, like, I don't know what else to tell you here. Moving to the Sunday slate, we had the Niners beat up on the Browns 26-8. This was a big weather game, so I wasn't expecting much out of either side in terms of production. Brock Purdy has a strong bounce-back game, but again, like, there's no real stats to be had here because the teams are trying both to establish the run here and not really passing the ball downfield too much. another stinker out of Ricky Pearsall. Christian McCaffrey, another 24 touches and a touchdown. On the flip side, I mean, it was very obvious what this game plan was going to be with the weather. Just give the ball to Quinshon Judkins 8,432,674 times. And that happened. 23 for 91 on the ground, 3 catches, 18 yards. Dylan Sampson aggravated his calf, but I think we just saw a report that said he was day-to-day. I was going to say would be a nice little boost to Quinshon Judkins in the passing game if he played a little bit more of the snaps on passing downs, but it does sound like Dylan Sampson might not actually even miss any time. Shedeur had one nice throw to Harold Fannin, who was just wide open on the sideline for a touchdown. Other than that, an uninspiring game here. Took 3 sacks, 149 through the air, but again, like, I'm not really holding weather games against anyone statistically. They have a really nice matchup at home against Tennessee next week, though. So Quinshon Judkins, you want in your lineup. I guess Fannin versus David Njoku, we could look into the snap counts here. And Fannin is just running circles around him in routes run. I didn't even realize that, to be honest with you. 93% of the routes for Harold Fannin, 37% for Njoku. Is that a 2-week sample size now? 81 to 43. Yeah, it's just getting more and more separation there. Hard to trust the passing game, obviously, if they're going to throw for 150 yards a week. But Fannin is clearly, in terms of usage, like he's the guy right now. Moving to the Jaguars at the Tennessee Titans here. Jaguars win 25-3, move to 8-4. Trevor Lawrence had a really good day, 229, 2 touchdowns, along with 25 on the ground there. Really disappointing for ETN, 12 for 28. I feel like this has been ETN's story all season. Like, as soon as people are back in on him, then he has a really disappointing game. Still dominated the backfield workload. Tootin did get the goal line carry, which he took in for a touchdown. But the story of the game here was the receiving group for Jacksonville. So we had Brian Thomas Jr. return from his high ankle sprain, which he missed a bunch of weeks for. 3 targets, 2 catches, 28 yards. Really disappointing day. Only ran a route on about 65% of the dropbacks. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that he is working back from the injury. There was someone saying that he was not actually playing a lot of the time on 2 wide receiver sets. So unless they genuinely believe that Brian Thomas Jr. is a worse option than Parker Washington in 2 wide receiver sets, that feels like he's working back from injury. That being said, do you trust him at all right now? Absolutely fucking not. He kind of stinks, and Jacoby Myers is taking over as the one. Parker Washington fucked up his hip in this game. Now, typically, if it's just like a basic hip pointer, you can usually get back in the game. Maybe it was game script related, like they were up a lot and he didn't come back in, but I think he got ruled out about halftime. So it's possible that's a muscle strain. You know, muscle strains typically sideline people for a few weeks, and they get Indy and the New York Jets at home back-to-back games. Without Sauce Gardner, it could be a good game for the passers, the pass-catching weapons in Jacksonville. Brenton Strange, second week back from his long IR stint, saw his routes jump up from 69% up to 81% in this one, and caught 3 or 4 targets, 45 yards, a touchdown. So when I'm looking at, you know, streaming options at tight end, Brenton Strange to me is like a top 10 fantasy tight end every week. And the exciting part of the Parker Washington injury is like Jacoby Myers, Brenton Strange run those over the middle routes that Parker Washington had kind of been sucking up targets from. So Parker Washington out, I expect Brian Thomas Jr. to be back to being a full-time player. Jacoby Myers, though, has been awesome. He's been great since they traded for him. Brenton Strange now getting a lot of the targets over the middle. Like, I think those two are pretty damn strong plays moving forward if Parker Washington were to miss time. On the flip side, you know, another terrible game out of Tennessee. Literally no fantasy takeaways. If you are starting anyone on Tennessee's offense, you are looking forward to 2026. Houston Texans beat the Colts 20-16 here. Stroud's first game back from the concussion, 276, no touchdowns, and interception. This team just stalled out in the red zone so many times, it felt like. Every time they got down there, it was like, oh, CJ Stroud probably going to throw a touchdown here. Doesn't do it. So better touchdown luck going forward for Houston and CJ Stroud. But huge win for them. They play at Kansas City next week, so not a very easy game for them. But Nico, 5 for 98. Jaden Higgins again runs the second most routes for the wide receiver position in Houston. So he's a legitimate flex option going forward. Finally gives you like a nice floor here outside of just scoring touchdowns. The backfield, again, was Woody Marks dominating, 19 for 64, 9 for 34. Chubb does get the touchdown here, which is always, you know, they do probably look at this as a little bit of a hot hand approach. Woody Marks did leave the game with some sort of like foot-ish injury, but then he returned. So monitor practice reports, but it doesn't seem overly serious here for that backfield. On the flip side, Daniel Jones, ailing from that broken or fractured, I believe it's a tibia. Yeah, it just doesn't look as mobile, doesn't look as good as he did in the beginning of the year, obviously. 201 and 2 touchdowns through the air, and it's hurting the ground game. It's hurting the air game. Alec Pierce was really the only guy to get home, 4 for 78 and a touchdown, but that's kind of going to be a cycle going forward. They ran so many fewer plays than the Texans, though. Texans kind of dominated the game script here. 69 plays on offense for the Texans. The Colts only had 50. So when you only run 50 plays, there's just so many statistics that can be thrown on paper here. JT getting 21 carries. Obviously, he comes through 3 for 36 through the air. But other than that, yeah, I mean, it's Pierce, it's Pittman. They're like, I think they're decent flex plays, but Daniel Jones is clearly slipping away a little bit in terms of, where he was in the beginning of the year. Dolphins and Saints. So I think the fantasy story for the Saints side was the fact that first game without Alvin Kamara, Devin Neal takes the majority of the workload in that backfield. 14 carries, 47 yards. Evan Hull takes 5 carries for 15 yards. Devin Hull also has 3 targets, 3 catches, 22 yards. So in terms of production, didn't really, nothing really happened there. He ended up with like 69 yards on 17 touches. But in terms of going forward and usage and stuff like that, like really strong participation there for Devin Neal. 81% of the snaps, 60% of the attempts, 70% of the routes. 100% across the board, short down, long down, 2-minute snaps. So if I was a Devin Neal owner, like, yeah, it kind of sucks that you didn't get a good game out of him. But next 4 games, Tampa Bay, Carolina, New York Jets, Tennessee Titans, I think you have a very, very sneaky winner here. Devin Neal, I think, could be fired up as a pretty much an every week flex play as long as Kamara is out because of his usage in this one. Devon Vele gets home in this one. No Brandon Cooks, whatever. He ran a lot of routes. I'm not about to tell you to start Devon Vele going forward, though. Flip side, terrible game from Tua. Achane gets home. Darren Waller makes his return. Dude had 2 for 47 in the first quarter and then doesn't post another stat for the remainder of the game. I think, again, that was a lot more of like the Miami offense not doing shit and Tua not connecting with anybody. Just a poor game from him. Surprisingly, they won the game. But for Waller, he was right back into his 70% route participation role there. So that was really good to see because, he had some really like game-changing weeks early on in the season prior to the IR stint. So I kind of think he's going right back to that. They play the Jets next week, and Kyle Pitts just had fucking 8 catches against them. So I like him against the Jets. Pittsburgh is bottom 5 in terms of fantasy points allowed to the tight end position. Cincinnati, Tampa Bay. So you have a beautiful, beautiful slate of the next 4 weeks for Darren Waller. So absolutely needs to be picked up. Jets, Falcons, we fucking stink, man. We are so bad. We lose to the Jets. Our first round pick, we don't have, apparently. I actually have never heard that from anyone. Did anyone hear that we don't have our first round pick or no? Does anyone know if the Rams happen to have it? Does anyone happen to know if the Rams have ours and it's a top 10 pick next year? Anyone out there? Because I didn't know that. No one's actually said that. I've never heard anyone say that before. Yeah, life's not good right now for Falcons. Like I said, Kyle Pitts gets home, but like until Drake London is back in the lineup, there's no one you can actually trust in this passing game. Like Kyle Pitts only gets home when we play the stone worst defenses and no one else is in the lineup. Like that's it. Otherwise, can never trust him. Bijan, monster day, almost 200 yards from scrimmage. Doesn't matter. We fucking lose. Tyrod, good game here. Breece Hall, good game. And this was what I was saying pretty much all of last week. If you watched my stream, if you watched Waiver Wire, if you watched my wide receiver video, kept talking about Adonai Mitchell. And all of the underlying usage was pointing towards Adonai Mitchell having a breakout game soon. And everyone was in on John Mechie because he had more production, more receptions, but all of his production was coming off of like scam, low ADOT targets. Adonai Mitchell's ADOT was really far downfield. Just most of his catchable targets most of his targets were not catchable. So finally he had a game, 12 targets, 8 for 102 and a touchdown, had the 52-yard touchdown pass down the field. So all of that like underproducing, very high value, volume he was getting finally turned into production. Does it make me trust him any more than it did last week? No, but it does kind of just come to fruition like what we've been saying in terms of these weeks are going to be possible for a guy like A.D. Mitchell because he's getting targeted down the field, 25 yards down the field, like 3-4 times a game. And eventually those are going to pop. So if he has a game next week of 3 points, would it surprise me? No. But if he ends up, scoring 15 again, also wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. They play Miami next week, so good matchup if you want to start him. Bucks at the Cardinals. So Jacoby, 301, 2 touchdowns, does well again. The backfield's a little bit weird. So you have Amari DiMarcado missing again with a high ankle sprain. You had Trey Benson, who it looked like he was going to return this week, came back to practice, and then got downgraded on Wednesday from a limited practice, and then DNP both Thursday and Friday, which would suggest he had some sort of setback. So I think there's a chance we again miss both Trey Benson and Amari DiMarcado, and possibly for multiple weeks. So it's going to be Bam Knight and Michael Carter. They've been splitting the backfield basically 50-50. When they're in catch-up mode, it's almost all Michael Carter. When they can carry the ball and run the ball, it's almost all Bam Knight. So he'll lead in early downs. He will get almost all of the touchdown opportunities on the goal line, ends up getting home again in this one. 3 straight games with at least 13 PPR fantasy points. Tough part about this is next 2 matchups, Rams and the Texans. So 2 of the toughest defenses on paper that he goes against. So going to be shaky flex play there. Return of Marvin Harrison, 6 for 69, was eating. However, he was like limping at the end of the game with a heel injury. I haven't heard much about it. I don't know the severity. He kind of just immediately overtook Michael Wilson again. They both had 7 targets and were both running all the routes pretty much, but he just outproduced Michael Wilson in this one, only 3 for 36 through the air. So that does seem like the probable pecking order when Marvin Harrison Jr. returns or is good to go. I just don't know what his injury status going forward is going to be with the heel injury. That feels like something that, I don't know. Does that linger? I don't know what the injury is. I haven't really heard much in terms of concrete reporting on it. So we'll see. Let me check Twitter real quick and see if we've got any sort of update on Marvy Poo. Hey, Mr. Carter. Not seeing anybody. Nope. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, if Marv's out again, of course, like, they do play, like I said, the Rams and the Texans, so 2 very difficult matchups, but you know McBride and Michael Wilson are going to see 10-plus targets and make them both really, really strong plays. On the flip side, Baker's still struggling in the passing game, but didn't really matter because Mr. Bucky Irving made his return. 17 carries, 61 yards, and a touchdown on the ground, 2 for 20 through the air. Also had another touchdown called back. I believe it was a holding penalty or something like that. But a really good game for Bucky here. 19 touches in his first game back. You know, they talked about it being kind of like a hot hand approach. They were going to work him into it, but he was the one who got hot right away. 54% of the snaps, 80% of the rushing attempts, split the routes run with Rachaad White. But I expect Bucky to be more and more involved in this offense, obviously, as the games continue to roll by. They get the Saints next week, the Falcons the week after that, the Panthers, and then the Dolphins. So if you got Bucky Irving, it is wheels the fuck up going forward, and he needs to be in your lineups. Emeka Egbuka, another disappointing day, did lead the team with 8 targets, so that's good to see. 4 for 42 through the air, so disappointing. Did have a drop. Chris Godwin, 3 for 78, had a couple big plays. That's not someone I really want to rely on right now. Does he look healthier? Sure, but am I ready to get him back in my lineup? No, I'll probably need to see more from him. There was reports that Jalen McMillan could return to practice or could return, semi-soon here to the lineup. Maybe Mike Evans could be back week 14, week 15. So a lot of moving parts still in this receiver group. So it gets a little bit messy. But again, Bucky Irving is definitely the story of this one. Panthers, Rams. We've got 2 more running back by committees here forming. We have the Panther side of things, which is more concerning than the Ram side of things. The Panthers win this one 31-28, beating the Super Bowl favorites, LA Rams. This was one of the more impressive wins of the year for any team, realistically, based on what we expected going in. Me watching this game, and here's how I think it kind of played out. I think the Rams were the better team in the first half, and it looked like they were on pace to win this game. Second half came out, and the downpours were there. The weather was very, very affecting in this game. And both teams went to a run-heavy approach in the second half instead of trying to pass the ball a lot, and the Panthers just out-executed the LA Rams. Now, Stafford threw 2 picks. It was obviously his first picks. He broke the record for most consecutive touchdown passes without throwing an interception, and then immediately, the next drive, threw a pick. Was it really his fault? He threw it off it was a batted pass at the line of scrimmage by a defensive lineman that just popped up and got picked. So I want to say more often than not, that's just going to be batted down and hit the ground and wouldn't be an interception, but it was a huge turning play. And then you had Mike Jackson, D-back for the Panthers, make a beautiful play on a pass from Stafford to the sidelines, which he returned for a pick six. That one was definitely his fault. But overall, I think just eye test, the way I saw this game, I think the Rams, this is going to sound stupid to a lot of people who didn't watch the game. I think the Rams were the better team, to be honest with you. I just think second half when the rain was coming down, the Panthers executed a lot better on defense. And then Bryce Young, don't want to take anything away from him, 206, 3 touchdowns. Most of his production came on big plays on fourth downs. So it was like 4th and 2 from like the 40 and just a beautifully executed thrown ball down the sideline to Tet or to Jalen Coker. So in many game plans, when they're just like punting on fourth or a field goal on fourth, like he wouldn't have those extra 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, don't want to take it away, but we're here to talk about like what's predictable going forward, what I expect going forward based on what happened. Again, good to see, but I'm not like going into next week like, hell yeah, I'm expecting Bryce Young to go fucking crazy down the stretch. They get a bye in week 14. The more concerning part of this team is the backfield here, where Rico Dowdle started, but Chuba outplayed him by a long stretch yesterday. Rico was fine. He got like what he was asked to do. He ran hard, etc., all that kind of stuff. But Chuba actually played really well. This was the best Chuba's looked all year, no questions asked. He was explosive. He was decisive. He was making big plays. He outplayed Rico Dowdle, and it led to it being a pure hot hand approach. Chuba got in, and he was playing the pass-catching role. He was playing on a lot of third downs. That was like his role, and then because he was playing so well on the ground, he ended up like just carving out a much bigger role. So to be honest with you, after the bye, I expect this to be a complete 50-50. I expect this to be, I don't even know who's going to start. I expect Chuba to be involved in the passing game. I still expect Rico to have a relatively large role. As you could see, both of them got a lot of touches. Chuba had 19 touches. Rico had 20 touches. Rico was kind of asked to like wear down the game at the end, and that's where a lot of his touches came. But throughout the actual game itself, Chuba outplayed him and for the most part out-touched him and outproduced him. And it leaves a messy backfield down the stretch for sure. And more often than not, games are not going to be in their favor in the way that they can give both running backs 20 touches. So in games where they both get like 13 or 12 touches, their fantasy production is going to be tough to come by. So that makes it tough. They do get New Orleans in week 15, Tampa Bay week 16, and then Seattle in week 17, which is tough. I would say going forward, if I had to choose who I'd rather roster, it would still be Rico, but like I don't feel great about either of them, unfortunately, going forward. Flip side, Blake Corum, Kyren Williams. Blake Corum outproduced him, 7 for 81 and a touchdown on the ground. Kyren Williams, 13 for 72 and a touchdown. Still had a really strong day for Kyren. But Kyren still outsnapped him 67% to Blake Corum's like 33%. So again, not overly concerned about that being an actual committee. Blake Corum is just going to get like, full drives to himself at a time. Devontae Adams, 2 more touchdowns, league leading 14 at this point, on pace for fucking 20. Overall though, I mean, Stafford missed a few throws, obviously threw a couple picks, but this is not like, I'm not concerned about the Rams. I still think they're like the team to beat in the NFL right now. They'll have a bounce back game against Arizona in Arizona next week. Seahawks and the Vikings. Max Brosmer's first start went about as bad as you'd expect Max Brosmer's first start to go. 4 interceptions, 4.2 yards per attempt, took 4 sacks. Horrendous. And it just absolutely tanked the entire team. I mean, it's nearly impossible to start anyone on this team right now. We don't know J.J. McCarthy's status for Week 14. They play Washington at home, so they have a beautiful matchup if he does get back. And I think I would probably start Justin Jefferson again, I guess. Has his worst day as a pro ever. 2 catches for 4 yards. If Max Brosmer is the quarterback again, what's funny? Like watching this game, like he obviously played really poorly. I don't think he made bad decisions necessarily. And I know most people won't agree with this. He wasn't good. Like the decisions that he made, I feel like he most of the time looked at the right route, found the right receiver. He just is probably not good enough to play at the NFL level. Like his throws were almost always behind the receivers, over the head of the receivers, a little bit slow in processing. But for the most part, I thought his processing was okay. And he made a lot of the right decisions. It's just like, this is what you get when you play against the Seattle Seahawks defense with pressure in your face every 5 seconds. So I do think if Brosmer gets another shot next week, J.J. McCarthy's out, he'll look a little bit better against Washington. So I have a little bit more confidence in Jefferson. Backfield, Aaron Jones left with, it looks like another AC sprain. I don't know. There was like conflicting reports about whether it was a re-injury to the AC sprain or the other shoulder. So I'm not actually sure. I do believe that there was a report that came out right before this stream about him being day-to-day with the shoulder injury. And if you remember, when he had the AC sprain in week 9, he ended up playing in week 10. Like, this is an injury that now we've seen with a bunch of players, quarterback, non-quarterbacks. You can take an injection and then just play the following week. So Aaron Jones, at worst, would miss 1 week, but I do think he could probably get that injection and then play through it. If he doesn't, Jordan Mason, for as bad as he's kind of been most of the year, would have a very big workload against the Washington Commanders defense, which has allowed the 4th most fantasy points in the NFL to opposing running backs. And I think regardless of who you have under center for Kevin O'Connell, Brosmer, or J.J. McCarthy, like, you want to hide them as much as you can, and you'd probably give Jordan Mason as many touches as he can handle in that game. Xavier Scott would definitely play a role. He's played a decent amount of that pass-catching role there. But Jordan Mason, in the 4 games that Aaron Jones missed earlier this year, had at least 15 touches in all 4 games. So I would expect that to be the floor of touches for him. So Mason would be a really, really high priority pickup if Aaron Jones is expected to miss week 14. On the flip side, it was just a game where the offense didn't need to do anything. Sam Darnold didn't play well. Took 4 sacks, 128 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Jackson Smith and Jigba held the 2 for 23, but it was just a dominant performance from the Seattle defense, just continuously putting their offense, inside the 50, inside the 40, and they just didn't need to do much here. So split backfield for Walker and Zach Charbonnet. But I will say, it really felt like, if you watch the first half, it was almost all Walker. Like, Charbonnet was not getting touches, not getting play time really until the second half, when the game was really iced out in a way. So, if we ever get a normal game script from Seattle, which it feels like we never do, I would expect Kenneth Walker to really dominate the game script here. So whatever. Bills at the Pittsburgh Steelers, 26-7. Bills walk away with a big win here. Josh Allen not asked to do much. 123 and a touchdown through the air. Does get in with around 40 rushing yards on the ground. Story of the Bills side of things was just James Cook. 35 touches in this one for 175 total yards from scrimmage. No one else in the passing game is doing shit out here. They need Dalton Kincaid to return badly. Big matchup at home against Cincinnati next week. That would be an unbelievably good matchup for Dalton Kincaid, because Cincy has allowed the most fantasy points to the tight end position on the season, and he's clearly been Allen's top target so far this year. Flip side, Aaron Rodgers played horrendously. Looked like he re-injured the left wrist, but then it looked like it was just a punch to the fucking nose. Whatever, he ended up finishing the game. So no worse for the wear, but their passing game is broken. Their ground game is fine, but it's split between Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell catching more passes, Warren getting the goal line work. Pittsburgh, just one of the more uninspiring teams of the season right now. They play at Baltimore in week 14, which is obviously a huge division game. I think the winner of that would probably move into first place in the AFC North. But, Baltimore's team has looked a lot better on defense over the last month or so, so I don't expect this to be a great outing for the Pittsburgh offense. DK Metcalf, at this point, if Rodgers under center, I feel like DK Metcalf's pretty much unstartable right now, as is everyone in this offense outside of probably Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell if you're actually Despy. Let's actually look at the breakdowns of the backfield there between Gainwell and Warren. It's probably around 50-50 because they were in catch-up mode. 56% in favor of Warren, 42% for Kenneth Gainwell. Routes are actually split down the middle, which is good to see, I guess, for Jaylen Warren. Short down and distance. Inside the 5 is all Warren, of course. So it's still Warren's backfield for the most part. But yeah, like I said, 50-50, especially in games when they are trailing here. And as I always mention to you guys, FantasyLife.com has all of this beautiful information in their utilization report. It is one of, if not the best resource in all of fantasy football right now. If you want it for the playoffs, if you sign up for a subscription on FantasyLife.com, any of their Fantasy Life Plus subscriptions, you will have it for a full calendar year. So now all the way in through to week 14 of next year. And if you use code BDGE when you check out on FantasyLife.com for their Plus subscription, you will get 20% off the subscription itself. So it's not very expensive. Super, super worth it if you want to be better at fantasy football and help make better decisions for yourself. They got a ton of other tools that I don't use in these recaps, obviously, for you guys. But once you get the subscription, these are all available to y'all outside of just the utilization report. Code BDGE if you get a subby. Moving to the Chargers at the Raiders. The Raiders, a lot more hot ass going on over there in Las Vegas. Ashton Jeanty, no running room, continues to be very involved in the passing game. 8 targets in this one on 23 Geno attempts. So he continues to have a floor because of the passing involvement. Brock Bowers, I mean, he's just so fucking good. It's unfortunate that he's wasting away in this passing offense right now. Caught all 4 of his targets, 63 yards, 2 touchdowns. The touchdown catch he had with his single hand was one of the better catches of the entire season. Just unbelievable. But they're fucking terrible. They're so, so bad. I don't even know where you go from here. Los Angeles Chargers. Kamani Vidal, another huge game. 25 for 126 and a touchdown on the ground. Biggest story here, of course, was Justin Herbert's hand or finger or whatever. He has a fracture in one of his fingers. And he basically put a glove on it in the second half so that he could help with grip. But like you could tell, he was not doing handoffs to his left hand. It was to his non-throwing hand. He was not doing handoffs there. He like had to protect it. So they didn't really throw the ball much in the second half. And they were leading anyway, so they didn't really have to. They relied very heavily on Kamani Vidal. Herbert is reportedly undergoing surgery today. Now, they play on Monday night. So he does get an extra day of rest. And he came out and said, Harbaugh came out and said he doesn't know if he's going to miss any time. Herbert came out and said he's planning to play Monday. Herbert's one of the toughest dudes in the NFL. He plays through a lot of injuries. So despite, hearing the word surgery and getting scared, really wouldn't surprise me at all if he ends up playing on Monday night. They play against the Philadelphia Eagles at home. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a 50-50 chance he plays. If he doesn't play, Trey Lance is going to fill in. Obviously, tough secondary against Philly. Lance would be like a spot start if you're in a super flex quarterback 2 league. He'll probably be around quarterback 18 to 22 for me in that range with 4 teams on bye, given the fact that he could run the ball a little bit. Don't want to start him if I don't have to, but there's a chance again that Herbert misses. The other storyline here is the backfield. Omarion Hampton is expected to return in week 14. That makes this backfield situation really fucking tricky. If you go around Twitter and you kind of look at what most of the doctors are saying in terms of what they expect from Hampton. One, they definitely don't expect a full workload out of the gate, which from a volume standpoint makes it tricky to decipher like who we should be starting in fantasy. 2, a lot of them are concerned about what his effectiveness is going to be in this first game back from the injury. So think like, Isaiah Pacheco last year. So honestly, like the Chargers without their top 2 tackles playing against Philadelphia, if Omarion Hampton, which we expect him to return, like I think when I do my running back rankings video, I think Hampton and Vidal, who I expect to have a real role in this offense as Hampton ramps up, I think both of them are going to be in the shaky flex category. Like, I don't really know how I would trust either of them. I think they'll probably both be 10 to 12, 13 touch guys. Vidal will probably have that like pass catching role. Hampton might have the goal line role. If Trey Lance is playing, do they get to the goal line often? It's a very up in the air situation right now. But we also do have to have Hampton returning in the first place to even have that discussion. But yeah, it's a tricky situation for sure. Moving to Sunday Night Football, Denver Broncos 27 in overtime, 26 Washington Commanders. So Bo Nix 321. On the passing side of things, Evan Ingram had probably his best game of the season, 6-for-79. I'm not overly excited about playing him any given week. They had 45 pass attempts for the Broncos in this one, not their typical game plan. Courtland Sutton, though, does get home for me. Won me a big matchup in one of my leagues by 2 points. It was, I think I was going into the night up 7.5. I had Courtland Sutton. They had RJ Harvey. So just barely pulled off that win. RJ Harvey wasn't great on the ground, 13 for 35, but he does get all the goal line work, which is big in this offense, especially when they're playing against teams like fucking the Washington Commanders here, because they're going to have the ball down by the goal line. They play the Raiders next week, which is another good matchup here. If we look at the backfield splits here, this game for RJ Harvey was extremely predictable. Like going against Washington, terrible defense, had a big game, ton of points for him. Great to see. Still sub 50% of the snaps. Tyler Bidet and Jaleel McLaughlin still playing a decent amount. He's going to be their top runner, but honestly, he's losing a lot of routes to Bidet. He's losing 2-minute drill, long down distance, which you would love to see him get because he is like kind of perfectly built for that role. RJ Harvey in a good matchup with 70% of the snaps would probably have a monster day, but he still gets home, obviously, again, 35 and 2 on the ground, plus 3 for 27 through the air. So good to see for Mr. Harvey. We expect J.K. Dobbins to miss, probably the remainder of the regular season at least. Washington side of things, we have Mariota putting up his best game of the year, 294, 2 touchdowns, 10 for 55 on the ground. The return of Terry McLaurin, big stuff, 7 for 96, any touchdown, 14 targets in this one. So it is possible that Jaden Daniels returns next week. It is not a definite, but this is the first game in which people are saying that it is definitely a real possibility that he could return. They play at Minnesota, so a tough passing defense for show there. But good to see Terry McLaurin back to, Terry McLaurin, fully healthy, not banged up, not re-injured or anything. So I think as far as Terry's concerned, it'll depend who's under center. If it's Mariota again, I think Terry will be like a wide receiver 3 for me in my rankings. Debo will probably be like a fringe wide receiver 3 as well. Huge game for Zach Ertz, 10 for 106. I just think Zach Ertz is a pretty decent play on the weekly basis. I'm not someone who ebbs and flows and fluctuates with Zach Ertz. He's kind of just been like my tight end 12 or 13 in my rankings every single week. Take the good with the bad. The backfield for Washington. This is, it's not tricky, but it's not inspiring, I guess you'd say. Chris Rodriguez over the last month of the season has just taken over completely the starting role. 11 carries, 41 yards, touchdown. This is his 3rd touchdown in the last 4 games. He combined for more carries than McNichols and JCM combined there. They combined for 10. He has almost 0 role in the passing game. So he'll take the majority of early down carries. He will take all the goal line work, but he needs a touchdown in order to not have a very, very low floor for you. That being said, though, he is scoring touchdowns. Like, again, 3 of the last 4 games, he has scored a touchdown. He's done that against 3 tough defenses, Denver, Detroit, and Seattle, 3 tough run defenses. They play Minnesota, which is better against the pass than the run. Then they play the Giants the week after that, and then Dallas in week 17. So they do have some plus matchups, and it is very much Chris Rodriguez's role to lose at this point. But, of course, again, he'll probably put you up 10 fantasy points, in PPR, and you could do a lot better than that. But there's also instances where I'm sure people could do a lot worse than that. So Rodriguez should be owned, and I will talk more about players that should be picked up and owned in tomorrow's waiver wire video, which as always goes live around noon Eastern time on Tuesdays. So if you want to watch that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. For audio listeners, we do also have a podcast, which I'm assuming most of you guys would probably know that if you like podcasts, but that is just BDGE Fantasy Football. If you check that in, I don't know, fucking iTunes, whatever Apple podcast, any podcasting place, we have them up, Spotify, all that shit. So that was Sunday Night Football. We've got Monday night, Patriots, Giants. I will leave you with that. We'll be back tomorrow for waiver wire, running back rankings, wide receiver rankings, Wednesday, Thursday. As always, let's get into these fucking Yoffs. I appreciate you guys for hanging out with me today. Make sure that you hit the button that looks like this. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. And most importantly, to support the brand, go get a Fantasy Life Plus subscription using code BDGE. 20% off. You'll have it for the calendar year. All right, I'm out of here. I love y'all. Smoochies, smoochies, smoochies. Mwah.